Welcome to the Brett Davis Podcast.
Hello, everybody. This is Brett Davis coming to you from Attorney King Studios in Coronado. I'm very honored today to have a man who is a veteran, very selfless man who's a great father, and is going to share some information about a book that he's got on Amazon right now. Mark Goblowsky, how you doing?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being on the show and taking the time. First of all, again, thank you for your service in the Air Force. You said for 8 years?
9.5.
9.5 years. Okay. Thank you for your service and your selflessness of what you do. And anybody out there thinking about getting in the military, what would you advise them to do? Not branch to go into, but what would you advise them to do?
Well, my advice would be, as an enlisted guy, get your degree and go in as an officer, and quite possibly consider it for a career, because as an officer and a 20-year career, and you're retired and you're bringing home some pretty good money after your 20 years. But yeah, if anybody's thinking about it, I'd go the officer route if you can pull it off.
Good advice as always. Thank you. So tell us a little bit about your son, Josh, and about how the book came about.
Sure. So Josh, he's 20 years old right now. When he was 3.5, he was riding in the back seat of his mom's car, and they were hit by a semi truck, and it was a hit and run. That semi just kept rolling. And when the car came to a stop, a second semi hit them. And that,
what?
Yeah.
A second semi hit them after the first semi hit them.
Yes. Yeah. Hard to believe. One, let alone two.
Well, what's the chances? I mean, it's got to be, you probably have a higher chance of getting hit by lightning, I would think.
I tell them all the time, dude, like, you're literally 1 in 7 billion. I have never heard of anybody getting hit.
I've heard of people having something like that similar happen, but not back to back that close. Usually it's like later on, like one gets hit by a lady got hit by a bus, and then she gets hit by a car, but that's like usually like, years apart. But that situation, I've never heard of anything like that.
It was literally seconds apart. And the first truck that created the problem and caused it didn't actually cause the majority of Josh's injuries. It was the second one. And that poor driver there was nothing they could do. It was literally like a bird flies in front of you, and you just hit it as you're going down the interstate. You couldn't stop it. You didn't see it coming. And that truck stopped, and then a lot of other people stopped, and they did what they could until the paramedics showed up, and they put him in the ambulance. Actually, they didn't even know he was in a car. He was in the back seat, and the second semi hit the trunk and pushed the trunk into the back seat. And so they got his mother out, and when her seat popped forward after they got her out, they saw his little arm fall out from behind the back seat. And then they were like, wow, there's a baby or a kid in here. He's 3.5. Anyhow, they put him in the ambulance, sent him off, and he ended up in the emergency room, and he was unconscious. I didn't know any of this had happened until his grandfather called me, and on the way to the hospital, I had no details other than he was unconscious. And when I got to the hospital, and I'm a praying guy, so I was praying on the way. I mean, like, every fiber of my being was praying, because I didn't know what unconscious meant. I'd had a cousin a few years younger than me have a brain injury. So when somebody's unconscious, it takes on a different meaning when you've already lived in that arena. So I get there, and he's on life support. And yeah, I didn't know what to do. Like, it took the wind out of my sails completely. Josh had suffered a massive brain injury, both hemispheres, all the lobes, his brain stem, like literally every part of his brain was injured. And the doctors didn't really have any good information for me, but they weren't telling me the information they did have, because it was just so bleak. Years later, when I asked his pediatrician who showed up there that first day, what did you think when you saw Josh in the ICU? And she didn't want to answer me. And I was like, oh, please, come on. I don't care what you thought. Just let me know what you were thinking. And she said, well, I was hoping he would pass, because the future that I saw based on all of the diagnostics, the quality of life was going to be zero for both of you. So, and this is a pediatrician, a mother of 5 kids. So, for a mom to think that, like, things were really bad.
Sure, because moms are very instinctive. They always seem to have a handle more on, not to say that fathers don't, but there's that bond with the mother. I think it comes from the womb. It's all that relationship of the body as a child developing in the mom. There's that connection that moms just seem to know those things. They have an insight. So I'm sure that probably was very frightening, and you took it very serious. And I do believe prayer does help, by the way, a lot.
It
I've seen
helped me
miracles.
on the way. It helped me to give me some peace, at least temporarily. You know what I mean? Because it comes and goes. You're at peace and you think everything's cool, and then your thoughts and you get new information, and then you can get wound up about it. But yeah, prayer does help. I think that's probably why he's still here. There was literally, once the word got out, there were people all over the world praying for him.
Wow.
Through the martial arts community that I was involved in, or am involved in. So anyhow, the brain surgeon showed up on the 4th day, and he said to me, if he makes it through the first 7 days, he'll probably live. But beyond that, I can't tell you anything. We'll know in 6 months how it is. And so my first target was like, okay, we got to make it to day 7. We just got to get to day 7. And then I'll worry about day 8 after that. And so we got there. They had taken the ventilator out. He was off life support, but he was still in a coma and unable to even swallow his own spit. It was really terrible. And then they ended up putting a tube in his belly so he could be fed, get him some nutrition and water, and administer his medicines that way. That happened at the end of week 2. Then at the end of week 3, went to a rehabilitation hospital that didn't take kids. But this doctor, Dr. Tom Franco, was amazing about it. And he came to the hospital and consulted while Josh was still in the ICU. And at one point I asked him, I said, is it possible that this is as good as it gets? Like him being in a coma in the bed, he can't move, he can't talk, he can't do anything. Is this possible? And he was super honest. He said, yeah, it's possible. But for me, it was like, now I know, like this, I know what the worst is. I can work with this. I don't know how it goes, but I know what the bottom is. And so I can live knowing that. He ended up in the rehab hospital and went through 7 to 8 rehab hours a day.
Surgery?
No, rehab.
Rehab.
Like physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy. They also had recreation therapy. And he'd spend an hour, 2 hours in the speech, occupation, and PT, and then an hour in recreation. And that was 7 hours a day that you're asking a kid who's 3.5 years old to do in a coma, which hats off to the medical professionals, because those therapists, they're amazing. Like they just know how to try to get the muscle and the brain to start working again. I mean, it was really magnificent to see them and to see them interact. Like they loved him, as professional, you know what I mean? They cared, like they deeply cared about trying to help him. So he spent 3 months in the hospital, 4 months total. And then he got out and went to outpatient therapy. And then we went to 12 therapy appointments a week at that point.
12 a week.
12 a week. Yep. 3 a day, 4 days a week.
How is Josh doing now?
You know, if you were to see him and you were to watch him to walk, you'd realize there's something amiss. Something's not quite normal. And as soon as you start talking to him, you realize he's probably have some, some developmental delays and inconsistencies. But that being said, the kid's got a heart of gold. He absolutely lights up a room when he walks into it. People love him. He's quite the jokester, and he likes to rib you, and he likes getting ribbed. And he's just a great kid. He plans on taking over my martial arts school. I mean, he still aspires to accomplish things, but honestly, a really, really hard wind could knock him over because his balance is still that compromised.
Sure.
17 years later.
Where's your martial arts school at?
Here in Bellevue, Nebraska.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've been in Nebraska before.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I've been on the border. You have Nebraska, and then it was at Omaha.
Yep.
I've been
right
on
on the south side.
I went on that bridge that separates the two.
The walking bridge or the...
Yeah.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, that was kind of interesting.
Yeah.
You would have to stand in two different states with a line between your legs and say, "Oh, I'm in Omaha and I'm in Nebraska at the same time." That was kind of weird.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a nice bridge.
Yeah. Because it's a separational line that goes, and you're on one. It's like that area over on that bridge. Sarah's asking, how is that possible? I guess you'd have to understand it or see it. But
what I'm going to do, I'm going to take a picture of that in the next few days, and I will send it to her.
He's going to send you that photo. Thank you. I appreciate that. There's a nice restaurant there too. I can't remember the name of it. I ate there. It's very nice.
There's a number of really great eateries in Omaha.
Really, really good. So tell me about your martial arts, because this is going to tie into Josh coming up. So what kind of martial arts is it?
It's I've studied Kung Fu since 1987.
Okay.
Which is a very traditional kind of old school training, but over the years I've added groundwork so that there's some grappling, in case you end up on the ground, you need to know what to do. So we do, I don't want to say we do Brazilian jiu-jitsu, but we do Brazilian jiu-jitsu type techniques once we get to the ground, just to make everybody a complete martial artist.
Yeah, and you got into this when you were in the military?
Yeah, I wanted to do it growing up, but we were dirt poor, and you're talking the 1960s and 70s, and there were hardly any martial arts schools anywhere. But once I got in the military and I had the money and I had the time, and I actually started while I was stationed in Korea, and I studied Kung Fu of all places in Korea, which is the home of Taekwondo.
Yeah. Why not? Right?
Exactly.
So is there something in Kung Fu that you think could benefit Josh, because you have been doing it for a long time? It is very holistic. It's very mental. It's very holistic. Is there something there you think that could benefit Josh?
Josh was doing it before he got hurt. So
okay.
And then after he got hurt, it became really, really difficult because of the balance. And it's still very difficult for him today, but we do it anyhow. I have him meditate. It's not for a long period of time. It's his mind is a little hyperactive at times. We do Qigong, we do the Kung Fu, we do kicking, we work on heavy bags, and he does almost everything that I would have you do if you were in the school. It just takes him quite a bit longer to kind of,
Sure. Well, I mean, my God, he was hit 2 times by, did you say a semi?
2 semis. Yep.
Not even the same one. It had to be 2 different ones.
Right.
Man.
It was epic.
So the book,
mm-hmm.
Let's talk about the book. When did he decide to write that book? And it probably in some ways was very therapeutic in a lot of ways, probably talking about it, because sometimes it's hard to talk about things. And when you write it, it becomes very, very much like therapy.
Yeah.
Doesn't it?
Yeah. I didn't even know he was writing it. Okay. So it's a children's book. It's a not animated, but there's drawings in it. There's a cartoon figure. So he and my old writing coach came up with the idea, and they kind of did it over a period of a couple months. And then I had no idea until they needed funding to get the book actually produced. Then they brought me into the picture and told me about it. So it was kind of funny the way it came about. But there's like 10 little chapters, and they just talk about one, getting hurt in kind of a kid-friendly way. So as not to scare them, but just, like I fell down and I got a bump on my head and this and that, to kind of connect to a little kid. And then it just talks about the different aspects of his life, and, the fact that he loves the Green Bay Packers and he wants to work for his dad when he grows up. And he likes to cook, and in our house, cooking's love. And it's just a lot of elements of who he is and parts of who he is that he discussed and kind of shared with the world in this effort to help people understand that maybe your life didn't go the way you wanted. Maybe something happened, and something unexpected happened, and maybe things aren't going perfectly, but things are going to be okay no matter what. It might be hard, it might take a little longer, but you've got what it takes. That's really the message.
It sounds like the message, the takeaway.
Yeah, for sure.
Overall. And I think it's very, very true. And we get so caught up in what's going on, no matter how bad things are, that we don't realize that if we just keep towing it and just keep working through it, that eventually with prayer and with pushing, things do change. They
Yeah,
can change.
absolutely. And I think we all, I forget that all the time.
Sure, we all do.
I have a note that I read in the morning to remind me, like, things are good. Like, things are good. Now, my son's not fixed. He's not whole. You know what I mean? Like, he's never been healed completely, and he's never going to be. And so I have to tell myself that's okay. I have a 9 or 10-year-old boy in a 20-year-old man's body, and I have to accept that I'm not going to get exactly what I thought I was going to get after all my prayers. Like, I believed he was going to be healed completely. After 5 years, I thought, man, this is taking a long time. And when we hit 10, I really started to question my own faith, like, should I even believe, things are ever going to get better? They had been improving, but it was kind of like at a snail's pace. And you know how it is when things don't go
Sure.
as fast as we would like, and maybe people aren't recognizing the good work we're doing, or I'm not being rewarded with the promotion or the raise. And
It's God's time. There's a reason why it's not happening at that time. There's a bigger picture, there's a bigger plan we're not probably privy to. We just kind of have to write it out and figure out where we're being taken to, because we really don't have the control we think we do. We like to get up every day and think that everything is in our hands, and it is to a point. But in your situation, like in Josh's situation, and for anybody else out there, the analogy would be, you never know what's going to happen, and there's always a reason why those things happen. We may not know until we get there.
When I was growing up, our home wasn't a real safe place, so to speak. It wasn't real loving. It was kind of violent at times.
You're talking about when you were a kid?
Yeah, when I was a kid. Yeah.
I would say mine was the same way.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Those things leave a mark. You know what I mean? Like, in your
Sure
head.
do. Oh, yeah.
Like, how did this happen? Why did this happen? And why did this happen to me? And Josh asks the same question about the car accident. Like, why did this happen to me? And there isn't always an answer why it happened, but in my older years now, now I have a shorter horizon, and my history keeps growing, but my horizon keeps shrinking, with each passing day. I think we get the chance to try to turn these kind of lead experiences, this gaudy, ugly, cheap metal. We get to try to turn it into gold in our lives. We get to try to help other people through our experiences of pain or misfortune or tragedy, whatever it is. And everybody has it.
Sure.
And everybody has it kind of, and it feels the same. It doesn't matter what you're going through. Everybody feels like this is really crappy. But we got to try to get our mind focused up and forward. I need to look up, stay positive. I need to look to the future, not keep turning around and looking at what's over my shoulder and what happened and what I wish would have gone differently. And maybe I should have made this different choice at the age of 27, but all we have is the future. Like, we have the present moment, and we have the future to look forward to. And I think we get the opportunity to try to turn all that lead into gold. And that's what we're trying to do.
I think you are right, and I think you're doing it. If anybody would like to purchase the book on Amazon, where can they get it? I mean, where can they get it? What's a good website? Or
you can go to Josh.
Oh, it's right there. I see it.
There you go. Yeah, it's up there.
Thank you, Sarah.
Also, if they go to joshgoblowsky.com, you can click on a link there and it takes you straight to Amazon as well. Yeah. And he'd love for you to read it and send him a letter.
Very nice.
In the back of the book.
Well, I appreciate your time and for being on the show. And thank you for sharing this amazing story of basically not giving up and continuing to progress and become better. Nothing's perfect and nothing happens, like you said, when we want it to. But I think through time, I think life is a masterpiece that needs to be worked on daily.
I couldn't have said it better myself, Brett. That's perfect. It is a masterpiece, and we got to keep painting
every day. And every day, something we got to make little improvements on that masterpiece.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Mark. You take care of yourself.
You too.
I look forward to looking at the book and sending a letter.
Thank you.
Take care of yourself. Everybody, that was a great show. If you have any questions that you want to ask, please email me at brettdavis2020@yahoo.com. I highly recommend checking this book out. It sounds like something that's very inspirational in these days and times when people don't seem to know where they're going or if they have any hope at all. There is hope. And if you're listening to that and you're questioning even your own life or, a situation you're going through, these types of stories are what we need to hear more of. And we need to learn to support each other more and look at the things that we do have in common and try to be cheerleaders for everybody. We got to get back to being just people like that and not looking at tiny things that we don't agree on. But just be human and be good people. And everybody take care of yourself. This is, of course, the Brett Davis Show at Turning King Studio. Everybody take care and God bless.